I would like to yield to anyone on the other side who would dispute that this bill bans weapons that are in common use in the United States today. Would anyone on the other side dispute that this bill would ban weapons that are in common use in the United States today?
Would the gentleman yield?
I would, for an answer to that question.
Yeah, that's the point of the bill.
Finally, the truth has come out. Welcome to another installment of Connecticut Gun Bench. Today's video is brought to you by P.A.N. Firearms, LLC, P.A.N. Firearms for your NRA certification and multifaceted gun training. You can reach us at 203-300-6343 or use our website at www.panfirearmsllc.com. As always, there'll be a link in the description box below. And let's talk about this. As you see from the last 3 videos that I've done, we're talking about HR1808. Which is the assault weapons ban for 2022, which, as I've said repeatedly, probably will not make it out of the Senate because they don't have the 60 votes to prevent a filibuster for it. And also, I want to note that several House Democrats have voted against it in the House. So they don't have full support on this thing among the Democrats. But now the truth has come out. I want to play this video where Dan Baker, he's the Republican from North Carolina, asked a very straightforward question, and we got a straightforward answer. Let's watch.
Gentleman from North Carolina, seek recognition.
To speak on the amendment.
Gentleman is recognized.
I would like to yield to anyone on the other side who would dispute that this bill bans weapons that are in common use in the United States today. Would anyone on the other side dispute that this bill would ban weapons that are in common use in the United States today?
Would the gentleman yield?
I would, for an answer to that question.
Yeah, that's the point of the bill.
So to clarify, Mr. Chairman, you're saying it is the point of the bill to ban weapons that are in common use in the United States today?
Yes, the problem is
if the gentleman will yield particularly dangerous weapons that are responsible for mass shootings.
Well, I didn't yield to you, Mr. Cicilline, yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you did.
Yeah, no, I wanted to clarify the point because actually, Mr. Cicilline, I think you're a very good lawyer. And to the extent you have...
No, I don't think that was a compliment.
You are... No, well, it is a compliment, although you've used your legal skill to obfuscate what the Supreme Court has said in very clear terms. So, if you go to Heller, first of all, Heller pointed out that the case to start with was United States versus Miller in 1939, where the Supreme Court talked about what the militia was entitled to use. And it said, ordinarily when called for militia service, able-bodied men were expected to appear bearing arms supplied by themselves and of the kind in common use at the time. It went on to say, Heller did, we also recognize another important limitation on the right to keep and carry arms. Miller said, as we have explained, that the sorts of weapons protected were those, quote, in common use at the time.
Mm-hmm.
In McDonald in 2010.
If the gentleman leave, you left out the next sentence. You think that limitation is...
Believe me, we're going to have an opportunity to get to your part about the unusual and dangerous. We'll cover that too, because it's all quite clear. What you suggest that this bill could possibly comply with what the Supreme Court has held in now 3 separate cases is absolutely absurd. You defy the Supreme Court of the United States in the same way the Democrats mounted massive resistance to Brown versus Board of Education. So we're going to explain that for the American people in the course of this hearing. The Democrats of the 1960s are the Democrats of the 2020s once again. So let's get on with it.
Mr. Chairman,
McDonald said, Heller points unmistakably to the answer. Self-defense is a basic right recognized by many legal systems from ancient times to the present. And the Heller court held that the individual's self-defense is the central component of the Second Amendment right. McDonald goes on, in Heller, we recognized that the codification of this right was prompted by fear that the federal government would disarm and thus disable the militias, but we rejected the suggestion that the right was valued only as a means of preserving the militias. On the contrary, we stressed that the right was also valued because the possession of firearms was thought to be essential for self-defense. As we put it, self-defense was, quote, the central component of the right itself. And then in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association from just several weeks ago, the court wrote, for example, he's talking about Heller. They're talking about Heller. We found it, quote, fairly supported by the historical tradition of prohibiting the carrying of dangerous and unusual weapons, quote, close quote, that the Second Amendment protects the possession and use of weapons that are, quote, in common use at the time. Going on, New York State Rifle and Pistol Association, 2022. Nor does any party dispute that handguns are weapons in common use today for self-defense. So just as the chairman just acknowledged to me, this bill bans many types of weapons that are in common use in the United States today. And finally,
The gentleman,
two more. No, I'm not done now. I've only got 38 seconds. I'll probably have to come back to this. We'll get a chance to discuss it because you guys are trying to mislead on this. Drawing from this historical tradition, we explained there that the Second Amendment protects only the carrying of weapons that are in common use at the time, as opposed to those that are, quote, highly unusual in society at large. So there we get close to the point that Mr. Cicilline attempts to confuse. There's a distinction. These weapons that you seek to ban are in common use today. Finally, thus, even if colonial laws prohibited the carrying of handguns because they were considered dangerous and unusual weapons in the 1690s, they provide no justification for laws restricting the public carry of weapons that are unquestionably in common use today. I yield back.
You heard that and you saw that. Yeah, there it is. They're straight out just trying to ban anything that is in common use. Now, we know, as I bring this up, the Supreme Court has confirmed with Heller, McDonald, NYRSPA versus Bruin that you cannot ban weapons that are in common use. Now, you heard the other Cicerone, I believe, Sister something. I can't remember the guy's name, which is really bad. I should go back and look. But you heard him say dangerous and unusual. And Baker, being quick as he is, jumped back into Miller. United States versus Miller, 1939, where Miller was criminally charged for transporting a sawed-off 12-gauge shotgun in interstate commerce. The district court dismissed it as a violation of the Second Amendment. The Supreme Court reversed. It held that the Second Amendment does not protect a person's right to keep and bear a sawed-off 12-gauge shotgun because such a gun has no reasonable relationship to the preservation of a well-regulated militia. It doesn't. Technically, it does not. But an AR-15 is in common use and is in reasonable relationship to the preservation of a well-regulated militia. That's the point that Baker tried to use to counter his opponent in the other side of dangerous and unusual. The AR-15 is not unusual, and any firearm is damn dangerous if you're an idiot. But, as I was saying, Supreme Court held that weapons that are in common use, which really makes me wonder why they even brought HR1808, knowing good and well with the makeup of the Supreme Court now, thank God, that if they took this to the courts, if they passed it and signed it into law, if they took it to the courts, it would go straight to the federal level because it's a federal, it's a federal law. It'll go straight to the federal level, and the Supreme Court will, basically fall back on past precedent, which is Heller, McDonald, and NYRSPA. They would fall back on that and say, no, these are weapons in common use. You can't ban them. But there's been a lot of back and forth about the term assault weapon. And in reality, the term was, a lot of revisionist history on that. But in reality, the word was popularized by a man named Josh Sugarman, who worked for the Violence Policy Center. He coined the phrase, and this is what he quote here. The weapons menacing looks coupled with the public's confusion over fully automatic machine guns versus semi-automatic assault weapons. Anything that looks like a machine gun is assumed to be a machine gun can only increase the chance of public support for restrictions on these weapons. That's the whole, that was coming, that's the quote from the person who actually popularized the phrase assault weapon. We know that the term assault weapon refers to a firearm that can go from semi-automatic to 3-burst to full automatic. It's a select fire weapon, which is the AR-15 is not. But assault weapon is easy to put on it because it looks like it. Weapons of war. These once again, as if you go back to another video I did where Representative Massey pretty much destroyed the whole concept of weapon of war, as the M1 Garand and the SKS are still legal under this bill, even though they were coined as weapons of war and still are in the world today. But the one thing I'm going to leave with is the fact that this poll was done June 9th of 2022, where Quinnipiac did a poll on the banning of assault weapons, and as you can see from the headline, support for assault weapons ban hits an all-time low following Uvalde shooting. This is a Quinnipiac poll. Once again, polls are difficult because they take a cross-section of people and you have no dynamics, you have no idea who these people are, political leanings and so forth. They just ask 1,000 people for their perspective on something. But it was definitely a lot higher, like last year. And this is the lowest support for it since 2013. So either people are catching on to the fact that banning weapons in the, I've said it over and over and over and over and over again, a law is only as good as those who will follow it. So when you pass a law that passes a ban, you're not stopping anything, you're not preventing anything, you're not addressing the root cause of the problem. I have said this also numerous times, that we do not have a gun problem, we have a morality problem in this country. We have a morality problem where murder committed by people under the age of 15 is becoming more and more prevalent, where assault by people under the age of 15 is becoming the norm. Gangs of teenagers roaming the streets, just beating up people. They killed a man in Philadelphia. We don't have a gun problem. We have a morality issue. Deal with that. It's like, think of violence as a tree. Okay? Violence is a tree. Instead of killing the roots of the tree to kill the tree of violence, they cut a limb off and expect the tree to die because it lost that one limb. It's not going to work. But let me know what you think. As always, you can leave your comments in the comment section below. And as always, any statements of violence or statements that lead to violence will be removed. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you get notified the next time a video goes live. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.